little more cash. Yeah, we're ready. It's hard to miss it. You know, they're gonna have to work on it.
All right. So, I will call the meeting to order. The Plan Commission for Monday, August 26, 2024 is now 6 p.m. I've noted the roll, and we have 2 excused absences this evening. Doug Plowman is remote from home this evening as well. Approval of the minutes from the July 22nd, 2024 meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
We do a roll call?
I did, I noted the roll.
Oh, sorry.
Yep. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion, any changes?
One on page 2, the page see the middle of the page, the paragraph starts with Mr. Reeves when he asked about when the CSM pertains. Down towards the end, it said that you said it comes from city ordinance and requires that the planning process be used for more complex creations. I believe it's state ordinance that the CSM comes from, and I think that's what you mentioned, didn't you? Or you were citing state ordinance or state statute?
I believe that I referenced the statute. I will make that edit.
What's up?
I couldn't hear him.
He said he believes
Yes.
it's state
Okay,
statute.
so that'd be the one change then.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. Noting that change. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And motion is approved. All right. Are there any appearances this evening that, any general appearances before we move on to the first order of business this evening? Is anyone here to speak? All right. No one online? And then unfinished business. A, public hearing on request by Harlan LLC on request for consideration of a certified survey map to consolidate 2 lots at 4111 and 4113 Monona Drive, case number 2019-2024. And I believe it's Mr. Miller. You want to come on up and let us know what's,
Good afternoon.
Thanks.
Evening.
yeah, if you just want to give us a once-over of what you're looking for. And
So, yep, I have 2 properties, 4111 and 4113 Monona Drive. I'm trying to build an apartment complex there, and I'm trying to remove the median line between those 2 to combine them to 1 lot. There had come up in the preliminary hearing, I believe it was by Chair Nancy Moore at the time, said, why are we not seeing plans before or in at the same time? The certified survey map showed us we had a lot less than we thought we had as far as buildable space. So the reason you're not seeing plans now is we need these to move forward with our design, so we're not spending another $20,000 or $25,000 to revamp our building process and our plans.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. And Doug, would you like to?
Thank you. Could we actually move on, if there's nobody else, into the consideration before I give my...
Okay, sure. Yep.
Thank you.
All right. So we will move on to consideration on the request by Harlan LLC for a certified survey map to consolidate the 2 lots. Doug?
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Sorry I can't be there in person. Got COVID, so just doing my best here, and thanks for sticking with me this evening. As far as the staff report for this, it's 4111, 4113 Monona Drive. The proposal here would combine 2 existing lots. This was reviewed at the Public Works Committee at the August meeting and received unanimous recommendation for approval. The parcels themselves are lots 7 and 8 of Block 20 of the Lake Edge Park Plat and have not been previously subdivided. In terms of dimensions and sort of access, frontage, things like that, Monona Drive is approximately 54 feet wide, according to city GIS mapping. The right-of-way is 66 feet in width, and they both meet the dimensional requirements. I will note the access concerns from the police chief that were included as part of the staff report. That would typically be viewed and reviewed as part of the zoning permit process. As far as the lot dimensions, there are no minimum lot sizes here for the multifamily zoning district, and the proposed lot 1 would measure just over 20,500 square feet to the ordinary high water mark. This was shared with Via Becker, the city's consulting engineer, just to take a look, and the review memo is included, and that is included as a suggested or a recommendation as part of the recommendation to City Council for approval, and those are both included in the staff report. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Doug. All right. Can we start with you, Chris?
Sure. I have no issues, no comment. I think it makes total sense.
Susan?
Same, nothing to add.
No issues.
John?
Same.
And Brandon?
Same.
All right. And this is, do I have a motion to approve the CSM?
I move approval with comments and recommendations as written by staff.
Second. Second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Miller. All right, moving on to C. Public hearing on request by Galway Companies for approval of a zoning permit for construction of a new golf entertainment venue at 5600 Disholt Drive, case number 2012-2024. All right. If you'd like to give us the rundown of what you're looking for.
Yes, hey, good evening, Todd Waldo with Top Golf. We're seeking approval tonight for a zoning permit to bring the first Top Golf to the state of Wisconsin. We were here for a pre-hearing back in June, and have certainly heard the comments from commission members and made some modifications to our plans, which we submitted. Some of those included adding some masonry to the building, removing the high-definition TV screens out in the outfield, adding some more landscaping, meeting the minimum open space requirements, amongst others. So we've made a pretty conscious effort to do a very responsible redevelopment of this property. For those that were not here back in June, this is a big economic development opportunity for the city of Monona. We've been looking for years in the state, in the greater Madison area, and partnered with Galway Properties and feel that we found the best site location and certainly attracted this area based on the pro-business mentality and certainly all the growth in the area as well, and feel that this will be a wonderful location for the first in the state, and certainly hopeful for your support tonight, and here to answer any questions that you may have with respect to our application. I'll pass the mic over to Steve to add anything else maybe potentially to for the discussion.
All right.
Yeah, thanks, Todd. I don't have too much other to add other than I'm here to answer any questions you might have on our involvement and what we intend to do with the remaining land. As you can see from the packet, there is just under 6 acres of remaining developable land that we will control and develop at some point in the future. As I indicated last time that we were here, we don't want today's high interest rates to drive our design, so we're being patient and intend to design and develop a project there that is the best fit for the site and the community.
Okay. And so closing the public hearing and moving on to consideration of it. Oh, sorry, whoops.
Is there anyone to speak?
Oh, does anyone else want to speak about this?
I know Paul Johnson is on the line. I received a comment, and I see that he's in attendance here as well this evening.
Oh, gotcha. Mr. Johnson? Mr. Johnson, can you hear us?
Yes, now I can.
Gotcha. Would you like to go ahead and kind of limit your comments to 3 minutes or less?
Sure, I will just reiterate what I had said to Mr. Plowman just in an email after I had heard about this for the first time with an article in the State Journal. And really my comments were more on the aesthetic side. And I asked Mr. Plowman to count me in as opposed to this type of development on this site. I'd followed the construction of the pin seekers up on the interstate near DeForest, wondering what that was until it became apparent what it was. And I have to admit that the first thing I thought was that this is an eyesore right by the highway. So much traffic going by on the interstate. And then when I heard about the proposal for this on another busy highway, I thought the same thing. I just considered this an eyesore. And then I asked Mr. Plowman in my email a couple of questions. I recall from years ago that I believe that the city, in working with Walmart for the construction of their facility on the south side of the Beltline, that the city, forced them to make some architectural elements changes or modifications to their process to basically make the back of their building not as unattractive. And I think there was something similar done for that Gerhard's or First Supply to erect a wall to cover up some of their storage areas. And I just posed the question that what could the city do to soften the impact or the effect of 150-foot high poles, fencing, sporting event lights that probably would be on later in the evening, most nights of the year. So really my concern was just on the look of this, on right by such a big highway as an entryway to the metropolitan Madison area.
Okay. Is there anyone else thank you very much for that. Is there anyone else that has anything to add in the online or in the room for the public hearing portion? All right. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and move on to consideration for action. Doug?
Thank you. So Galway Company is proposing the construction of a golf entertainment venue located at the corner of Gisholf Drive and Engel Street to be operated by Topgolf. Proposal includes 34,000 square feet, two-story building with 72 climate-controlled bays and an outfield with turf targets facilitating an interactive golf game, with food and beverage options both in the bar and restaurant as well as the golf bays. This is one part of the proposed site that also has future development opportunity to the north, as the applicant has mentioned. This includes the current Southtown Office Park, as well as the remainder being the western portion of the WPS campus as well. The project will include a TIF request, and the developer has been coordinating with the city's Community Development Authority and discussing that as well. The parcel in question is located within the city's Community Design District, the CDD, and a zoning permit is required for this given the new construction that is proposed. As far as the land use, the materials give a little more detail specifically about the proposal. The sports entertainment venue with a technologically advanced multi-level golf driving range, full-service restaurant and bar, event space, and entertainment complex. The zoning district, the standards for that call for a compatible mix of residential, commercial, industrial, and open space uses, realizing the goals of the city's comprehensive plan. And the 2016 comp plan classifies this use as commercial use in both the current and the future land use maps. And the definition for that, using the Capital Area Regional Planning Commission definitions, is land use for retail, service, commercial, and office uses. Included in the 2016 comp plan is within the economic development section, or the element, calls for growth that provides for a balanced economy with a mixture of uses. And this use does provide a unique entertainment venue that can be a regional draw and provide a range of full and part-time jobs. Parking standards for a use like this, commercial uses are required to provide one parking stall for every 300 square feet of gross floor area. Additionally, restaurants and bars shall provide one space for every 25 square feet of gross floor area if a seating plan is not provided. There was discussion at the pre-hearing back in June for the use, given the unique nature of the proposal and looking at some similar operations elsewhere in the country. The applicant did provide comparisons with other Topgolf facilities that have the same number of hitting bays. That's included in the meeting materials and includes It ranges from 317 to 351 stalls, with Monona at 345. Additionally, the developer of the site also owns the Floor and Decor and Pet Supplies Plus portion of Southtown Mall just across the street to the west. There is an excess of parking for these uses currently, and there is the possibility of a parking easement or the opportunity for some overflow or staff parking as needed across there. Included within the 345 surface stalls are 8 handicap stalls. The parking stalls themselves are predominantly located along the southern portion of the site that do provide a buffer to the Beltline Highway to the south. A couple elements worth discussing could be alternative methods to access the site, inclusion of bicycle parking, as well as the opportunity to add some EV charging, given the potential duration of stay that would be there. Typically, the commission has requested conduit being included with the construction of any parking lot of the size of this. As far as site design and circulation, access to the site will primarily be from Gisholt Drive to the west, with 2 curb cuts proposed. An additional third curb cut or access point is proposed to the east that would access the WPS campus and onto their private drive, and there would be easements that would be needed as part of that. As part of the pre-hearing, the applicant did provide a trip generation technical memo that sort of discussed the expected traffic to the site. And given the scale of the office buildings, with over 130,000 square feet of existing space, the weekday trip generation is expected to be a reduction from current capacity and expectations, as well as the projected conditions for the weekend. The forecast is for 85 new trips at peak hour on a Saturday, and that would be 40 in, 45 out. So generally, there had been discussion of that, sort of the accessibility to the site. It does appear that the infrastructure is capable of handling the expected number of trips. The architecture and massing, building elevations are included in the packet, and the proposal here is for a 2-story building facing east that's 41 feet in height at its peak. The exterior is a variety of EIFS and metal treatments, as well as storefront glass for a modern aesthetic. As mentioned by the applicant, the ground floor has been revised now to include gray brick rather than EIFS in response to the commission feedback. A couple sort of functional elements here: outdoor storage and mechanicals must be screened per city standards, and it appears that these are going to be behind the cedar fence, and the screening is to the north there for deliveries and maintenance as well. One point of discussion would be the proposed miniature golf. That's not shown, or there's some sort of discrepancy between some of the civil sites, civil plans, as well as some of the architectural plans. So just clarifying the location of that with the applicant is recommended here, as it may impact some of the green space and some of those calculations. The use does require barrier netting and net poles as well in the outfield area for the safety of the operations. The pole height is not to exceed 156 feet at the highest point based on the finished floor elevation of the building, and the poles are proposed to be painted light gray with 1-inch mesh netting to be used. The height is significant, but understood to be the standard height authorized by the company based on the height of the building. And the applicant did include a rendering within the meeting packet, again, that's included online, that does show a rendering of the proposed facility from the Beltline in response to discussion of the pre-hearing. It's recommended that plans be stamped and engineered to the satisfaction of the city's building inspector, and of course that any issues with golf balls leaving the facility could potentially come back to the Plan Commission to look at remedies for that in the future. Hours of operation, Sunday to Thursday, are proposed to be 9 a.m. to midnight. Friday and Saturday, hours 9 a.m. to 2 a.m. The stormwater and utilities, I know that this evening you're joined by a couple staff from Strand Associates. They reviewed this on the city's behalf. And if I may, I'll turn over to them in just a minute to kind of run through that. A full lighting plan, photometric plan is included for the project exterior that includes 15 light poles in total, with 7 of those being back-to-back fixtures. These are located throughout the parking lot, and they're all cut-off LED fixtures. Again, the facility does plan LED fixtures above each hitting bay, with accent lighting also proposed for the building exterior. Landscaping numbers are based on the number of parking stalls that are proposed, and with 345 proposed parking stalls, over 5,000 landscaping points are required, as well as 29 canopy trees. Submitted landscaping plan is nearly 6,500 landscaping points, far exceeding the minimum standards, with a total of 76 canopy trees proposed as well. In response to feedback from the commission at the pre-hearing, an inventory of existing trees was also taken, with 4 of the proposed 76 to be remain in place from the current site and preserved as well. One point to mention that may be a point of discussion is just those located along the southern boundary of the parking lot that do appear to be quite close to the basins. And that may be something just to discuss if those should be relocated, just given the potential conflicts between the two. Also pointed out by the applicant is that the plans, as far as the parking lot islands, are not uniform. Typically, the city requires every 12 stalls to have tree islands to kind of break up that linear plane. But the location of these has been adjusted simply to allow for some of the existing trees and to just better fit a little bit with those as well. The city standards do require 30% of the site be open green space, and the materials show that 3.55 acres and 30.5% of the 11.65 acre site are now listed as green space. And it's being clarified as well that that does not include the turfed outfield. That is not counted as part of that open green space. A full comprehensive signage plan is also included that will be considered later on this agenda. And the green initiatives were also discussed during the pre-hearing. The applicant submitted sort of an overview sheet of those elements. One thing that is not included, that may be a discussion point this evening, is the inclusion of solar panels. That could be something potentially that the building could accommodate and something the commission may choose to discuss. Finally, plans were shared with department heads for review and comment. Parks Director Anderson supported the facility, what it could do to sort of bring visitors to nearby parks and the skating rink, and said it could be an amazing asset to the community. And throughout the process, we've been working with both the police and fire chiefs as well, from an access standpoint, from sort of a safety standpoint as well, and neither had concerns with the proposal. With that, the recommendation is approval of the proposal with the finding of fact and conditions of approval as listed in the staff report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doug. Then we're going to bring up folks from Strand to speak a bit here.
Can I speak from back here, or do you want me to go?
Just need to get the microphone.
Yeah, we need you on a microphone. Yep. Thank you.
Well, on camera, too.
Yes. Can't escape the camera.
You don't want me on camera. Hey, Doug, do you want would you prefer like a summary, or do you want me to go through these line by line? Summary. All right, I figured that would be best.
Yeah.
All right, so as Doug had said, on the city's behalf, Strand Associates put together a review of a number of items for the plan drawings that were submitted. I'm just going to go through the kind of the broad categories in a quick summary. So we had outstanding items requested for review in the submittal that was provided. We did not have an erosion control, like plan sheet, plan drawing for review. Obviously, we'd like to see that. That's going to be needed for permits with the state and the county. So that needs to be included. Another item that needs to be included would be like your demolition sheet. There is a roadway that Ingle Drive is being, vacated as part of this development. There's a lot of existing utilities beneath that existing roadway right away, and we feel that it would warrant a demolition sheet to show the limits of those utility removals and how they're proposing about doing such. Really quick, we did a site plan review. This mostly pertained to just elements that were on the site, driveways, sidewalk thicknesses. In general, everything looked good. We would ask that there be additional details for things like your concrete curb, your sidewalk, driveway aprons, but nothing really in this section stood out as being an issue. We just need a little bit more detail for a next round review, and then we indicated which items we'd be expecting to see. From a grading plan review standpoint, they are proposing a crosswalk that connects to that parking lot that was mentioned that could be overflow parking. We'd like to see some information on that from an ADA compliance standpoint, just make sure that we have the appropriate grades for that. A little more detail for, like I said, ped ramps, and for just your driveways and some of the curb lines that are being replaced. appropriate signage too for that crosswalk, just to make sure that Schultz is properly signed for a mid-block crossing. That needs to be included. There's a couple spots in the parking lot that exceed ADA's 2% slope, so we would ask that those are looked at as well to get that within the range. There was a couple comments about some grades around the site, including how the site ties into the existing grade to the north. There may need to be a swale that's developed there, but nothing really stood out as a showstopper in that regard. So there just needs to be a little bit more detail on how it's going to connect to the existing topography to the north. And again, just more details for this section on outfalls and different things like that for the storm basin. And then finally, for the utility plan review, they have a sanitary sewer lateral and a water service that they obviously need as part of the development. We'd ask for more details on where they're going to connect, what size, what depths for the next review. We have a few questions on just verifying that the sizes proposed for the development were appropriate for the demand of the development. Again, details for hydrants and pipe material and their grease trap should be provided in these plan drawings, so construction details for that. And then just again, information on kind of what utilities are going to be left in place, what utilities are going to be abandoned, you know, if any utilities that are being left in place may have cover issues with their new grading plans, if manholes that are out there today that are, you know, supposed to be, remain, if they can remain, if they should be looked at for, you know, height and clearance and what type of structures are there, you know, if the manholes have enough adjustments to be left in place, and if not, to replace those. Yeah, again, not anything really standing out as, again, a showstopper, I'll say. It's just more detail, a little more information through that section. I think that would be good in a second review. Construction details on top of the ones that I mentioned. They have some details for their basins that they have on site. They have a series of, you know, some wet and dry and infiltration basins that we need a little more information about. Again, that's just something that should be able to provide. And then from a lighting and electrical review, I think Doug and I might have doubled up on this, but just a couple notes about their photometrics maybe being a little high in a few spots with their lighting, and then just making sure that they're coordinating or touching base with the DOT to make sure there's no light pollution on the adjacent highway. Again, from kind of a site grading standpoint, a utility standpoint, more information is requested. None of this information that we're requesting, I think, is going to be anything that would give us any reservation from, you know, allowing this to move forward. I will let Mike's with me, he's with our stormwater group. If you guys read through this, I know that there was a little bit more detail or a little more maybe pressing comments for a couple of the stormwater items that I'm going to let Mike talk about really briefly.
Sure, thank you, John. I will say we had a nice conversation with the developer's engineer today, and I feel like we're on the exact same page when it comes to these comments. They understand where we're coming from and what we're looking for during the next submittal. So I think from that standpoint, I think we're in a good spot. As John said, showstoppers, I don't believe that there's a showstopper here. Some of these sound significant. For instance, the large commercial watershed to the west of the site that drains to the low point on Gisholt. Our goal there is to continue to have an overland flow path that lets water go from the west side of the site to the east side. Again, we talked that through with Bierbecker, and I think we're on the same page. Besides that, I really have no other further things to comment on at this time.
Great. So we'll open it up to the commission members, and we'll start with Chris.
Okay. First, as an overview, I mentioned this last time we saw this proposal. I think this is a good proposal, a great proposal for Monona. I think this will be a catalyst to redevelopment in that area. Until they made their presentation, I didn't know we were losing some more WPS buildings. And if we ended up with all those office buildings down there and now the WPS buildings, and we're looking for redevelopment, that would be a substantial lift for the city of Monona. So I think this particular proposal will garner a lot of other development in the area, and I'm very much in favor of it happening if it can. To speak to our speaker, Mr. Johnson, who took the time out to talk to us tonight, and we always appreciate comment from the public. We get too little of that. I happened to be on the commission when we did require a lot of changes to the Walmart project. That was basically a big box with the back end of it facing the belt line, and we didn't feel that was appropriate. We wanted a front door there. My opinion of this project, I think the building is very attractive that's been proposed. I think they've done a great job, and it looks like something I would want to see from the highway. Now, I understand the hesitation with the nets and poles. There's no way to build this without those. And what I would relate that to was when they built that electric transmission line along the belt line, I thought, oh my gosh, that's horrible. Look at those poles, look at those lines. This is a travesty to the whole area. And I felt that for a while, and I don't even notice them now. It's just part of the landscape to me when I drive by, and I think for most people, I hear very few complaints about that. We did, as commission members, get a copy. I don't know if you can put it up online so they can see, but of what the rendering of what this might look like. And as far as trying to soften the impact of this, I think whatever we would ask them to do would show more. I think anything we had them do to this, if we had them make it a different color or something that didn't blend in, I can't think of anything we could ask them. There, thank you. That's the rendering we got. I can't think of anything we could do to that to make it less obtrusive, because I think to enhance it would bring your eye to it. So I'm very comfortable with what they propose as far as the netting and the poles go. In no order, because I had some notes, I took some tonight. Certainly the thing you're talking about with the storm is to safely pass the 200-year storm event, which we ask for everywhere. And where it goes, it can use roads, it can go over the top of the detention basin, go wherever it wants, just so we safely pass it and we don't have an issue with flooding somewhere. And that, of course, I think Vera Becker is very much aware of that too. Since you're at the table, I might just go through a couple of my comments I had on your report, if that's okay, because I imagine the developer will get back there eventually. When you mentioned the DOT for light pollution, now, we will look at cutoff fixtures, and they're proposing everywhere in the parking lot. They do have some decorative lighting. I'm not sure the DOT controls that, do they?
No, I don't think they would control
Okay.
that. I think it's just.
So for what we have right now, with the lighting plan we have, they've got cutoff, and they're not trespassing light to the right-of-way that I saw anywhere,
Okay.
unless you found a spot for that. Now, where they go on the road, if they're on the current road that's still going to be active, and we've said this many times in the lighting plans we reviewed, if they have light trespass onto our public right-of-way where there's traffic and there's pedestrians, we don't usually have a problem with that. That just helps light our major corridors. So if the trespass that we're talking about for 3-foot candles is over there, I think that's just fine, because unless Public Works would have an issue with that, I can't imagine Public Works or police would want it less lit when we're going to have that amount of traffic and pedestrian volume there. So I think just looking at that, that's kind of the read I had on it, looking at it, unless you had something else on it. A question, you mentioned the ADA grades. Now, to cross the road, you're talking about like in the apron or the curb cuts and things like that. We're not going to ask them to change the crown on the road or something.
Correct. No, this would just.
Because I imagine
Yep.
usually we have 2.5–3% crown on our roads in
Yeah.
Monona, so, and that's the same thing everywhere.
Right, and it
So
could be
what
up
we're
to
looking at
5,
is to make
yeah.
sure the ramps are
Yep.
appropriate, and things
Yep,
like that.
correct.
Okay,
Yep.
thanks. And then where you're talking about in the parking lot that it exceeds 2%, you're talking about the ADA routes, not the parking lot in general.
I believe, I can't remember. off
Because
the
when I
top of my
read your
head.
report,
Yeah.
it sounded like the parking lot exceeds 2%. And a lot of parking lots exceed 2%. We just don't want the ADA route to exceed 2%.
Correct.
Correct?
yeah.
Okay.
Yep, yep.
Just want to make sure we're on the same page with
Yep.
that.
Yep.
And I had a couple tabs just for clarification on your report. One of them was the parking lot. Yeah, the one was the illuminating more than 3-foot candles. And I guess I would say if it's over in our, right away in our road, that's not a bad thing.
Sure.
Certainly if it's to some other property or the DOT right away, absolutely it'd be an issue. And then one of them really gets into the meat of the stormwater report. Sorry, I didn't want to leave you off.
Oh, thanks.
So I reviewed it, and I had a couple questions, because when I looked at this, one question was the ratios they're using for new and redevelopment, right? And when I looked at the plan, that's not the right one. The redevelopment, for me, I would look at this, most of the southern part, not that northern 6 point whatever acres that they're holding for redevelopment, but for this area, I guess this is as good as anywhere. I would look at all that as developed property, right? Because this whole southern area, although it looks like it's all grass, it's all the detention basins, the water quality controls for WPS and their maintenance shed. And there's some upper areas, but very few. I mean, so I would consider that all existing development. The area that's really open for redevelopment, that's never been developed, is here. And then, to me, for a very lesser extent, it's this little piece here just to the west of the existing WPS building that we'll be taking over. But even when we actually approved the last amount of work in that WPS building, to be able to get that, because you can see with all the intensity of parking lots, some of that we considered their 30% green space to be able to approve that development.
Okay.
So when I look at it, I see honestly less new development than what they're even talking about. So I just keep that in mind, because some of your other comments, and I agree, it would be nice if we didn't have to have two-to-one slopes somewhere, because 2-to-1 slopes are terrible to maintain. I mean, it takes very special planting, and it takes those plantings, you've got to, for a year or 2 or 3, you've got to cut out the weeds and everything. So if we can help them soften those up, but we look at this, and just so the rest of the commission understands this, I'm showing it to them, most of the area where the Top Golf is going is in what's pretty highly developed area, other than that one lot, and I think some of you were here when we approved that last building here, and some of this is green space. There's not a lot of area here that's not developed. And what we are getting as a commission, this entire area here with that office park has 0 controls. So we're getting a lot higher water quality out of this than what exists there right now. So I'm not trying to cut them a break as much as I'm trying to say, if we can look at this area reasonably what it is, and that helps them soften up some slopes so they can have a little better area going to some of those bases and a little easier to maintain, that might make a better overall project.
Sure. And I think that's where our comment came from, was let's have an exhibit that shows
Yes.
what you're defining as redevelopment and what you're defining as new development. And on that figure, include your calculations for example, TSS reduction for
Correct.
the site.
And that's where I'm looking at that, and that generates the size of those ponds.
Yeah.
So if it works out, we can soften up those slopes. I know they're trying to put a lot in here. I would love to see if they could soften up the slopes a little bit, because I think long-term it would be a better project for everybody, and there'd be less problems with erosion or anything else in there. Those, I think, were my major comments I had on your report. I think it's a great report, and I guess at this point, before I go on, I'd ask the applicant and the applicant's engineer, is there anything you've heard or anything you've seen that you think needs to be worked out that you can't cover or you can't hit with that report? You've read Strand's report? Yep, we're good. Okay. Kevin? Good, okay. Got nodding heads back there for those online. Okay. Traffic, we talked about a little bit last time I was here. I don't see traffic as an issue. Like I said last time, if we can't handle traffic at this location, there's nowhere in Monona we can handle it. We've got enough of a distance off the intersection with Southtown that there's stacking distance, but it's not so far that we have a bunch of traffic going somewhere else. I gotta commend you in your light pole locations, not putting them in the islands so we can get trees and nice landscaping growing in the islands. I love that. I wish more people would do that and have those light poles out of the islands and let those islands grow something and look good. While I'm on light poles, I might have missed it. Is there somewhere that it talks about the colors and is this fixture, I mean, I see the cutout, but do we have the colors? Maybe could the applicant come
Generally-
join us back at the table?
Yeah, it's generally like a bronze, brown paper steel.
Bronze or black?
Bronze or dark color.
Yeah, okay. So I guess one thing I would probably talk about is a condition. Let me start with the conditions. I think, Doug, you did a great job with your conditions for approval. You were very comprehensive, and so thank you for that. But I would see perhaps one additional one, that your electric plan will come back to staff for staff approval. Just talk about things like that. The colors and everything. We always look at that just like we look at the colors on the building. So
Yep.
it's not a big deal. It's just,
Yes, sir.
I don't
that
think,
would-
I don't think anyone wants to see galvanized poles and fixtures.
Understood.
Okay, in your elevations, you added brick, thank you, and appreciate that, but it says brick 1 on the key, and you talk about brick 2 on the elevations. Is there a disconnect there?
I think it's just one color brick, is that correct? A gray color brick that is on the lower level
Yeah, if you look
along
on
the
your
base.
elevations, you have a brick 1, you don't have any brick 2, but then the elevations themselves point to brick 2.
That may just be a mistake on the plan. I think there's only one brick type and color.
I would assume that, John, wouldn't you? But I don't know, I mean, it's a,
That's right.
it's,
That's right. It's a typo.
okay.
Should say brick 1.
Okay. You show a lot of metal siding. What type of metal is that?
You want to speak to that, Kevin?
There's a lot of different types of metal.
Yes, it is. It's not standing seam metal, I will tell you that. It's more of like an insulated metal panel. Could we pull that up, Mr. Plowman, could we pull that up on the screen potentially? The
Yes.
color building
I will.
elevation?
Yes.
Everybody should have that in their packet. Just put it up on the screen.
Oh, you know what? We have the material board as well.
Perfect.
Maybe easier to pass around.
So we can say, and we can have it on the record, that the brick that's, the gray brick that's not on this,
That's probably not an
Material
updated
board is-
material board. Yeah,
it's not
that's,
on it.
it's the old board.
um,
All the other materials will be consistent with what's shown on that sample board.
okay, so the metal?
Yeah, I mean, just those metal panels. It's not like a corrugated metal that you might see on a big box type warehouse, but we can get you a better detail if that would help.
If my associate down on that end is happy with it, I'm happy with it. If John
We can
likes
send
it.
you actual photos
Okay.
of we've got a building similar to this opening next week in Des Moines, Iowa. We can send you photos of that.
The brick is what type of brick?
It's a brick veneer.
It's,
Thin brick tab system is what we call it.
so it's just a glue-on brick?
Pretty much.
And what's the size? Does it look like a queen? Does it look like a king size?
It's not a jumbo size, it's a standard
A
size
jumbo?
brick. Yeah.
Okay.
We can also send you photos of that as well.
Okay. So one thing I'm a little concerned about, not that it can't be taken care of, but when staff looked at this, I mean, they have a comment when we look at the CSM, but I just want to make sure police and fire have a chance to comment on this about emergency access to one city schools. That was a big issue to them when we zoned that in there. There's a lot of paving around there. I am quite certain there can be a way to make sure we maintain emergency access, but I think that the emergency services have to chime in on that, because, for example, if something would happen by Besa where it's being built, they're cut off. So you
Yeah,
want to
so-
address it?
Sure, absolutely. So Andrew McCready from WPS is actually here tonight, and he can speak to this in more detail if you'd like. But WPS did have an emergency access agreement in place with One City when they sold them that property. They had the right to relocate that along the east side of their drive, and they are in the process of having that access relocated on the east side of their drive. Originally, when they sold the property, the previous CEO did not want the access agreement to go on the east side of their building, but they had the right to relocate that, and that is the plan, is to relocate it along the east side of the building.
All makes sense. I just don't think that emergency services realize that whole south access road is being wiped out for the basin.
Okay.
So it gives them a chance to look at it, talk with you, WPS, and say, yeah, we have a plan. And, fire trucks and police cars can get through a lot. It doesn't have to be perfect, but they need some reasonable way that they can get access to that. So honestly, they need a reasonable way. WPS needs a reasonable way probably to get through your property if there's a stoplight. Something happens to it. So I assume you're going to have some, actually, we'd probably ask you to have some access agreements between you and WPS also.
Yeah, we
So you
will.
can both hit both stoplights.
We will. And Doug, I did send Doug the exhibit for where we were gonna reroute that. Doug, did you have a chance to share that with fire or police?
I have not yet done that, but I certainly can.
Okay.
Yes.
Nope, no problem. And we'll certainly, Andrew's almost done having that agreement reconfigured, so as soon as we have that done, we'll share that with you as well.
Okay, as far as the access between you also, right?
Yes.
Because when we went and, as the city, and put in another stoplight there, we put it in the WPS campus for whatever it was at the time, 4 or 5 buildings, and said this is a major access point. So we don't want to lose that as you kind of shrink to your 1 or 2 buildings. We want to still have that access point to get them out both ways on both those stoplights, which I think you would want.
We
And
do.
I know you would want to be able to let people back out the other way too, so it's just a matter we have something in place.
Yep, we do have a shared access agreement right now that we're working through for not only access but future maintenance, so that is something we will have.
Thank you.
And I will just add that there was verbal support from both police and fire when I did discuss the reroute. I just need to share the final document with them.
Great.
Thanks.
I said I was done with Strand. Well, I could be done with Strand. This could be a Beerbecker question. The bio basin and everything you're putting in, the infiltration, is that just for this use that we're looking at tonight, or is that sized for the future uses for the 6 acres to the north?
The 6 acres and this site each have their own BMPs proposed that meet the requirements for their site standalone.
Okay, so the 6 acres will be a standalone.
Yep. In the report, it calls out 3 different bioretention basins to meet their requirements, but it's all going to come.
I saw that, but
down.
I don't know if you even know your total. I imagine you know your impervious is going to be 70%.
We have an assumed impervious based
Okay.
off of
Okay, great.
some plans.
Thank
but-
you. I assume the applicant has seen the staff conditions that include bike parking, EV, et cetera, all those things. Do you have any comments on any of that?
No, we would plan on putting some bicycle parking spaces, probably a bicycle rack at
Okay.
an appropriate location, and we've agreed to put in some infrastructure for
Right.
future EV stations.
Okay.
That's not a concern. I think there was some mention of solar panels, which becomes difficult on a building like this because it's a pretty small footprint and not much room on the roof to install those types of applications with rooftop units and other things of that sort, so we would not be able to do that. But we've got a whole host of sustainability measures that we will incorporate into the building. I believe that was included in the...
It was a nice spreadsheet. Appreciate it. For my old eyes, I'd use this to be able to read it. It was pretty small, but I was able to get it with that. Yeah, I can see where this particular building would be tough to get the solar on top. But since you mentioned your, whatever you're going to have on that roof, that's all screened then?
Yes, utility screens, parapet in the front.
Okay. And
yes.
the cedar fences down below, they're also screening?
There's some screen fencing. We've got obviously a ton of landscape material that's being proposed as well
Okay.
to soften some of those areas. I know there was, I think I heard one question tonight, and Mr. Plowman, I don't know if are you able to pull up a site plan on the screen and I can just walk through? I know there's a question about locations of certain area, mini golf and other things of that
Yes, you
sort.
can.
And we can kind of just
Yes,
talk
I'll
through
pull that up.
Okay.
While he's doing that, since we got to the cedar fence, I see EFS 3. Does that actually look like cedar?
It is, it's a new application that we've done, probably 3 or 4 buildings now. And it is a pattern that is done with the EFS, just a lot of labor involved in that. But it is a wood finish, and it looks extremely realistic. I've seen it in person.
Reason I asked is because we asked for screening enclosures down below to match the building architecture, and it looks like that
Yeah,
EFS, you can
fence-
do that?
The fence will be similar to that.
Okay, I see somebody smiling. There's going to be somebody else that has something to say about that.
On this plan that's on the screen now, just orientations to the building certainly is on the west side of the property. The T line, which is the driving range component, faces towards the east. We do have an outdoor patio that is just south of the building, shown in kind of that concrete pattern. And then beyond that, we have plans which will probably be a future phase for mini golf. Initially, it'll be a green area, just a large landscape area just to the south of that outdoor patio, between the outdoor patio and the parking to the south. So it'll be a very nice, again, lawn area, and then hopefully we can convert that in the future to mini golf. Climate up here is not all that great for mini golf. Certainly can't get year-round activation out of it, but that would be the general location.
Thanks. We're actually hardy folk. You'd be surprised. I want to compliment whoever did the ADA parking. I have a good friend that was diagnosed with MS about 15 years ago. He's been getting progressively worse. He obviously needs van parking, and the one thing he taught me about ADA parking is put the van parking as far away from the front door as you can. I don't know if you did that on purpose or not, but listening to him, when you listen to someone like that, he says, every time I go to try to get on my van, whoever's got ADA placard will take the closest parking to the front door. He says, I don't care if I'm by the front door, I just want to be able to get out of my van. So I appreciate the way you put the van parking as far from that front door as possible. I don't know if that was purposeful, but someone like him, it's a big deal. That's why I mentioned it. There was some talk, Doug, about no parking on Gishold, where, that would be a Public Works call, correct?
Yeah.
Yes, there had been some discussion with the Director of Public Works as well as the 2 chiefs about their preference for what Gishold, given the proposed operations, what that would be, and that was their suggestion, was the no parking especially if that crosswalk was going to be added.
Yeah, only reason I asked is that's a pretty wide road, and sometimes having parking slows people down a little bit too, but that would totally be a Public Works decision on what they want to do with that.
And we have no current plans to provide any parking along that roadway. I think it was mentioned in one of the conditions in here. We will work with the developer to provide some overflow or employee parking on the Florin DeGore parking lot, and then have that crosswalk to connect it to the Topgolf parcel.
Well, around parking, the parking looks fine to me. We're fortunate in this situation that the developer has overflow right next door. And as you saw, there's a condition on here that we will monitor how it's working and if you need that extra parking or not. And the condition says we could come back and say, hey, you've got to do something permanent for this extra parking you're using all the time. And I'm sure you have a pretty good feeling for what you'll use for parking.
Yes, sir. Well, we hope, again, with this being the first venue in the state, it'll be very popular. Generally, there's a honeymoon period where a lot of people are interested in going to, kind of the new thing in town. But we've kind of patterned this over some similar sized venues that are in comparable markets, and feel that this is the appropriate amount of parking. And again, having the ability to have overflow parking for our employees to get our guests and customers closer to the front door is the intent.
Yeah, great. This is actually our first Topgolf, so we don't have as much experience with them as you do.
Understood.
Island spacing, I'm fine with. You've hit the intent of every 12. There's some areas that go a little further, some a little less. I think overall it looks really good. And again, I love the fact that you are not putting your light poles in those islands. Permeable pavement, where's that? What is it? It said here somewhere on your green stuff, permeable pavement, I thought I saw on that list.
We don't have any proposed, to my
Okay.
knowledge. That doesn't
Well, then maybe
really,
it's one of those items you didn't have checked.
For potential.
we haven't had a lot of success with that, especially in an area where it'd be a lot of snow plowing.
Okay, so that's not in any of your,
No,
I didn't
sir.
see it actually in the stormwater. Somewhere I read permeable pavement.
Well, it's some additional green options. We haven't had much success with that.
Okay. Sorry. Like I mentioned, I would anticipate additional conditions that talk about that electric plan, that the final clarification on the pole colors, things like that. The lighting condition, that if the intensity of this lighting is too much, as deemed by the Plan Commission can require that to be reduced. Again, we don't have experience with this, and you have a lot of lighting, decorative lighting facing to the east.
Yeah, if we can go back, Mr. Plowman, to the site plan, please. Yeah, all of our decorative lighting is on the more architectural lighting's on the front of the building. Our lighting that we have for the driving range is east facing. But we've got a pretty decent setback from the Beltline Highway. I don't know that exact distance, but it's over 200 feet.
Yep.
And there's a lot of built improvements further to the east. And I think I might have mentioned this previously last time we were here, but those outfield lights we calibrate. It's really for the use of top tracer technology that we have. And we're able to dim those lights. Certainly we want to be a good neighbor, so we're able to control the kind of the intensity of that light. So as part of the ramp up of the venue operations, we'll calibrate those lights, get it to certainly be respectful of the built surroundings, and per the lighting plan, I think there was a photometric plan submitted that, we don't anticipate any light pollution whatsoever. It dies out at the property boundary. And I do think, Mr. Plowman, I think we've submitted an actual photo of what this venue would look like at night, just with the outfield lighting. Do you have that in your packet that you can pull up?
That was in the pre-hearing. I can pull that up. Just give me a second for that, please.
I mean, visually, that's just a whole lot easier to
Yeah,
understand
we've
than
seen
the
it,
photometric plan.
and you know what you're talking about, just so you understand. We'll have that condition if all of a sudden it's not what you said, and it's like boom, and we feel that the traffic on the belt line is being compromised from it.
It's quite frequent that we locate our venues within close proximity to interstate highways or major roadways. And I think, again, with the setback that we have here and the ability to calibrate our lights, I don't foresee that being a concern.
Okay.
Oh, there we are. Thank you, Doug. Yeah, this is
Yep.
just kind of certainly a view of a comparable type of venue. I think this is actually Boise, Idaho. Is that right, Kevin?
Yep, that's right.
So it gives you kind of a view of what those lights look like. Again, there's no lights on top of the rooftop. There's no lights on the net poles, no stadium lighting. It's all installed on the underside of the building canopy. And it dies out, as you get to about 150 yards or so in the outfield.
Looks great up on there on the picture. One last question. In the stormwater report, is it just you reviewed this area? This isn't the proposed property limits. This is just the area that's being reviewed?
What sheet is that? One of the upfront?
It's one of the
maps?
covered ones. It's the aerial map, actually.
Yeah.
Because when I looked at it, you're buying this whole area and this access road on WPS, but when I look at everything else in the CSM, you're not.
It is, I believe, shared shared stormwater maintenance plan that would include that area.
So to clarify that, we are not buying that area to the east of the drive aisle, but our company and WPS will have a shared stormwater agreement, and we will be reconfiguring that pond that's on the east side of the drive aisle.
Okay, you know, I know you're actually eliminating that southern drive
Correct.
aisle. How about here where you go, the study goes into the WPS parking lot, includes that whole west loop road?
That's an old property line. That's how the property line exists right now. We're
Okay.
bringing the property line for the CSM straight down the
Yeah,
middle.
I
of the
saw
road.
that. I was
Yep.
just wondering why the stormwater report was including those areas.
That map needs to be updated.
Yeah.
Okay, just so everybody sees, it's just a plan you didn't have, but when I went through the stormwater report, there was a little incongruity with what I thought was happening.
Yeah. I think that probably follows the existing property line, not the proposed, so we'll update that.
Okay. I think that's it for now. I'll go over my notes in case there's anything else. But appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Let's go with John next.
Since I brought you up like 3 times.
Yes.
Sorry.
Bounce around.
Yeah. I'm gonna bounce around today.
I'm quite ready for that. Sorry. First, I'd like to say thank you to the development team for listening to us. You improved the materials of the building, you met our green space requirements, and your list of sustainability items are commendable. So thank you. Second, I think this is an enormous positive project and economic impact for Monona, and I think it will bring future positive impact as well. I would also like to thank you for the rendering from the Beltline. We didn't ask you to do that, and that's probably the most dangerous rendering that you could probably show. And I think it's truthful in what it illustrates is that the building is rather secondary, and that these poles and nets, which is part of the use of the functional use, kind of take over and dominate. And I think, well, it may not be the most attractive thing in the world. I think this location is probably the most appropriate next to a major road or next to a highway. I did have 2 questions. One is that there's a roof plan and a number of roof detail sheets provided, but the project is in Avon, Ohio, or I don't know if that's how you say it, Avon.
I think that was just some representative information that was provided. Certainly we'll have more project-specific documentation when we submit for our final engineering
Okay.
and also our building permit. I think that was just more of a representative example.
Okay, for the roof screening and things like that.
Yes, sir. Yes.
All right, and then my second one, which might be a little more important, is all the colored renderings that we've been looking at and the images of the materials from the, I might get this wrong too, the area group. At the bottom, it lists the location as Madison, Wisconsin, and I think we're in Monona, Wisconsin, so we'd appreciate that correction.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I have nothing else. Oh, I do have one more comment. I did learn something tonight, that ephes can be made to look like wood. I've never seen that before, and
We learned that about 1.5 years ago, and surprisingly enough, it's pretty attractive finish. I wouldn't have thought that.
so then my next question is, Frank Lloyd Wright, who was an architect from Wisconsin,
Yes.
once said that doctors bury their mistakes and architects plant ivy. So maybe we could get some ephes to look like ivy. That would be quite impressive.
That would be a new one, but I'm sure we could do it.
Thank you. Nice presentation.
Thank you. Rob?
Yeah, I think you've done a good job addressing a lot of the comments that we made previously. To start with, I think, well, I'm not a golfer and I'm not overly excited about the visual impact that this have. I do think it's a good project for the site. And catalyst, I think, is the perfect word because I think it's going to have positive impacts for the redevelopment of that kind of, I don't know. There's room for improvement, I think, in that corridor, and I think this is a good step. Earlier, Mr. Johnson brought up the DeForest Golf Complex. I don't know what it's called.
Pin Seekers.
Pin Seekers. Okay. Well, it's a similar kind of. I think it's trying to achieve similar things. I think this is a much more attractive building. I think this is a big step up from what that facility offers in aesthetics and finishes, landscaping, and how it kind of fits into its greater context. So I think that gives me a lot of comfort, moving this project forward because it's not taking shortcuts, I don't think. So in no particular order here, I was going to address the missing sheets in the plan set that Strand had mentioned, and there seems to be a number of missing items and need for more detail, but I feel like I think the term was showstopper. I'm not concerned that there's any major things that are going to come up that can't be addressed that Strand is not that Strand is directing Verbecker to do. So the demo plan would have been interesting to look at, though. The photometric plan, I thought you'd appreciate the giant numbers on there. I've never seen a
I meant to
photometric
thank
plan.
you for that, for doing
Yeah,
that.
it's very-
I saw
it's
the
very
first one, I
readable.
said, this is unreadable, this is unreadable. Man, it's unreadable. And then I get in the back pages, it's like, thank you.
I've never seen that before. Let me see here. I was going to ask about photometrics for the lawn area, but it sounds like that is pretty much unlit, or very minimally lit.
Which area again?
The lawn where you hit the balls to.
Oh, the outfield. Well,
The
yeah,
outfield.
the photo of that is pretty illustrative. Certainly, the lights are shining in that direction. Those are not cut-off lights. I think we talked about that before. They're more horizontal in nature. But yeah, that should be part of the photometric plan package as well, showing, have we included that, or is it just a parking lot
I don't think
light?
so. I missed it.
We can certainly supplement that.
I'm not overly concerned, given the information that was provided. For that wet detention area, is there a fence proposed or required or needed around that at all? I don't know what the depth of that is.
It meets the DNR standards, got the safety shelf, right at the water level, they give you that, more flat surface as you get into that water pool. We currently don't have a plan for a fence around that, so there's the existing fence off the south side for the belt line, but nothing kind of coming up and around it. Sure you're talking about the Sudbury incident that last year.
Yep.
I don't know if there's been any specific guidance on if fences should be always installed around these wet ponds, but I'm sure it wouldn't be a huge deal to us.
What's the depth of the
I'm
pond?
not asking to put it up just for the sake of putting it up, but maybe look at it, consult with Strand to find if it's warranted, and if so, add it, but I wouldn't make it a condition necessarily. Bike parking was brought up.
We'll put fencing up.
I think the intent of the 12 stalls in a row is met. I didn't have concerns with that. Staff comments about the trees on the southern side of the parking lot. I think that could be successful. I think there is room, and I think those trees could be planted partially in the slope if needed. Just maybe look at your tree selection to make sure that you have a tree that is going to be happy with wet feet. Is that ADA, the ADA parking area, is that a flush sidewalk?
Yes.
The entire length
It
there?
is.
Yep.
Okay. You have your signs in the asphalt? And so are you gonna have any wheel stops, I guess is what I'm getting
The
at?
sign will be in a bollard.
Okay.
In the center of that,
Okay, so you have a
the
concrete
front of the
wall
island.
with a
That's right.
sleeve or something?
That's
Okay.
right.
The light fixture, since we don't have cut sheets, I assume that's kind of just like a blade style light? Like a low profile blade style, do we know?
Including an LED shoebox type of fixture.
Yeah, I saw. Right here. Yep, there it is.
Oh, yeah, okay, perfect.
Just didn't talk about the colors.
Okay.
Right, Chief?
Yes, sir.
The 30% green space was met. You talked about a future mini golf
Yes, sir.
addition. How is that going to impact your open green space requirement?
You wanna speak to that,
Is that a
Mr. Nick?
concrete? I don't know how you're going to construct that, or
Well, the mini golf would be some artificial turf with some natural landscaping around it. Was that included in the open space?
It is not.
We excluded it. Okay. So would
Is
it be
that
impactful?
concrete? Is that is it adding impervious? Is what I'm asking.
Yes, we'd add impervious. I haven't seen specific plans for square footage of it, but I know we have a little bit of buffer in there.
Okay.
So hopefully be able to accept that.
The whole area is not, the whole area would not be concrete. There'd be landscape areas, but the holes themselves would be
Understood. I'm
concrete
just
with
thinking
turf
of your
on it.
calculations and what you're proposing versus what you're going to talking about future improvements,
Yeah.
if you're gonna be exceeding those thresholds, then it's something worth bringing up at this point.
We could ask Doug, but I believe it would have to come back if they added a miniature golf facility there, would it not, Doug?
I think depending on the extent of the improvements, it would be potentially a revision to the zoning permit, yeah.
I think the use would be approved tonight. It would just be, the details would have to come back if we did propose that in the future. Is that correct?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
As far as we're
Yeah.
concerned, yes.
Okay. All right, gotcha.
So I think that's the extent of my comments, so thank you.
Thank you.
Susan?
All right, well, I don't really have a lot to add. I think this is a great project. It's really exciting. And my husband is a golfer. I'm not, but he's really excited about this. But it looks great, and I do appreciate that you responded to the comments that were raised before. And the only thing I had, just for clarification, when you talk about that emergency route being to the east, is that going down WPS Drive and going through, there's those flexible bollards at the end of that?
They're plastic there.
They're
They're just
plastic,
down
so
there,
they
yeah.
could go right through that. Is that where
That's
you're
off our property
talking
now.
about? Well, when you talked about it, yeah,
Yeah.
you're nodding, yeah, that's right.
That's
That's what I thought when I went, it's the only place I saw where you could come in, and it looked like it made sense, so, yeah, no, I think it's great, and that was the only good thing I wanted clarification on.
Okay.
So, otherwise.
Awesome. Brandon?
Okay, I only have 2 additional comments, but I do want to echo what the commission has already said. I think the comprehensiveness of the team that's come out tonight to present on this is a reflection of how seriously you've taken our concerns and interests. I do think that this project is great for the community, and just thank you for your responsiveness, and thank you for the demonstrated seriousness that you've taken our comments with. So 2 comments only. On the landscaping plan, I was thinking that, Rob, you might have commented on this. We've got a number of screening trees that we have at the south end of the lot, but the north end, does that have to do with the open green space requirement? Why there seems like a lot of opportunity for screening trees potentially along that same northern strip of the parcel, similar, mimicking what's happening at the south end of the parcel. I don't know if that had to do with any other.
Was that an area
Yeah.
you talked about potentially having a swale through, needing that? Okay.
I think the swell would be further north of that property line, or just on the north side of that property line.
Okay.
Well, one of the reasons I think there's not extensive landscaping there is just for access and maintenance of the netting and the net poles, that we needed to get a vehicle in there that could access from the outside perimeter of the netting. So
Mhm.
sometimes if the netting is changed out, or if there is a emergency type of situation and repair needs to be done, either a large lift
Mhm.
truck or a crane would come in to
Mhm.
repair the netting.
Yep.
So that's just really an access path for
Yep.
that type of vehicle.
Well, and recognizing you've already exceeded the landscaping points, it was just an observation, just wanted to
Okay.
ask about it. This conversation was coming up earlier about solar panels. I don't know where that conversation might have originated from. I don't remember it being in the pre-hearing conference, but maybe it was in some sort of plan review. I've only seen this in more temperate climates, such as in California, such as the corporate headquarters for my own company. But the parking lot itself serving as a location for solar panels themselves. Now, I think in our climate that might create other issues as far as circulation for snow plows, et cetera, and there were already comments made about the opportunity to, have more vegetation in the islands versus structures in the islands. But that, for the way your site is sited, that southern portion of the lot is actually really well positioned and oriented. I'm just speaking of this to the concept of it. You may have seen this yourself in certain instances, but just for the clientele you might have here, it's effectively providing a kind of covered parking while it's still outdoor parking, and then achieving the outcome of a solar field. And because you just have the southern facing parking lot. Again, not something that I'm asking or requesting needs to be considered at this stage, but just bringing the concept to you for just consideration. Again, I fully understand that in our climate there are a lot of reasons why it probably isn't a practical consideration, and why I've only observed this in more temperate climates. but wanted to share it here. That's the extent of my comments.
All right, thank you. And I guess I would just like to add on to what everyone else said. I think it's a great project for Monona. Looking at it visually, it reminds me of the Titletown development in Green Bay from an aesthetic perspective. And I think it will spur further development in that area, and I'm kind of excited about what that will bring. So thank you for bringing this to Monona. Thank you for responding well to the Plan Commission and what we're looking for in changes. So with that, Chris, did you have anything else? I know you're going to look at your notes. Did you have anything else to add?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, remember you mentioned that. So can we entertain a motion?
I'll move approval with finding of fact as written by staff, conditions 1 through 16 as written by staff, condition 17 that the final electrical plan be submitted to staff and approved by staff. Condition 18, if the Plan Commission deems the lighting intensity to be excessive, the Plan Commission may require reduced intensities. Condition 19, that emergency access routes approved by Monona to service One City Schools. And condition 20, that the access agreement between the developer, WPS, and One City Schools is reviewed and approved by staff.
And is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Chris?
It seems redundant, but the emergency access routes, I assume staff will just talk to police and fire, make sure they're comfortable with what you've got planned. I don't see any potential issues there, but it's just for the safety of that place, because when we zoned it in there, we want to make sure there was 2 ways in and out. And then the last one is just to recognize that you have access agreements between the 3 properties, so that you can all use that stoplight and as well as the stoplight coming off of Gisholt. Do you have any questions of us of anything tonight?
I don't.
No, sir.
Okay.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And motion passes. Thank you very much. Right. Moving on to new business. Public hearing on request of Topgolf Monona LLC for consideration of a CSM and street vacation of Engle Street for the purpose of constructing a new golf entertainment venue and future development opportunities at 1709 to 1717 West Broadway. Case number 2021-2024. And Steve, are you talking about, you want to tell us about, you want to talk to us about this?
Sure, I'd be
Okay.
happy to. So, Doug, would you mind bringing up the CSM or the kind of the overall plan?
Yes, I can
It's
do
in the
that.
packet.
My laptop's just running a little slow, but I'll get it. I can probably just talk
So
through
how
it
was the
too.
weekend?
I was just going to start humming the Jeopardy theme
Yeah,
song. You know.
oh, there we go. That's probably okay to start with, Doug. So as you can see from the survey that's shown, there are multiple parcels that we are combining into a 2-lot CSM. Right now, there are 3 parcels on the west side of our lot that consist of the Gisholt Southtown Office Park buildings. And then WPS has lot 1 and 2, which we are acquiring. And then in addition to that, the road, or what we call WPS Drive, comes in the the property line sort of is jagged and goes into the existing WPS corporate headquarters parking lot. So essentially what we're looking to do is take all of the property that we're acquiring from WPS and from the Gisholt office building park owner and combine that into a two-lot CSM. The first lot would be the Top Golf parcel, so they would be on their own billable tax parcel. They would receive their own tax bill. And then we have approximately just under 6 acres of land to the north, which we're calling our future development area. That, again, we don't have site planned yet. We could potentially split that lot again in the future. It is likely we will once we come up with a concept plan there, but that any future subdivision or any future plan for that would come back to this commission for input and approval. So for tonight, we're really just looking for approval on a 2-lot CSM to clean up the property lines, get that property to follow that WPS road, and give Top Golf their own billable tax parcel to start with the phase 1 of the project.
Thank you. And Doug, did you have anything to add?
Yes, I can give an update. Could we do that as we
Yep.
go into pre-hearing, if you don't mind,
Yep.
please? Thank you.
Great. All right, moving on to the pre-hearing conference for consideration of certified survey map for Engle Street. Doug.
Thank you. So as mentioned, this proposal would reconfigure the existing lots and allow for the proposed future development on the site. This request does include the vacation of a just over 400 foot linear portion of Engle Street as well. The applicant plans to construct a golf entertainment venue on proposed lot 1 as well as future development on lot 2. WPS will remain at their corporate headquarters on the proposed lots 3 and 4 of the CSM as well. This was reviewed by the Public Works Committee at their August 7th meeting and unanimously recommended for approval. And just one thing to note is that the city attorney plans to begin the vacation process of Engle Street via a city council resolution based on the outcome of the Plan Commission discussion with this item. The parcels included within the boundaries of the proposed CSM include lots 1, 2, and 3 of CSM 4203, as well as lots 1 and 3 of 15810 as well. Given that this is a consolidation of parcels, the CSM may proceed as proposed rather than with the more intensive preliminary and final plat process. The lots will access both Gisholt Drive. Lots 1 and 2, proposed lots 1 and 2 will access Gisholt Drive, which varies in width from 60 to 66 feet. And the other 2 lots will access West Broadway, which exceeds the values, although the width does vary for those. The access easements are also in place for lot 4, benefiting it and allowing for access to West Broadway via the proposed lot 3, and that will remain in place. And there is also, it's expected access easements benefiting lot 1 will also be executed to allow for that eastern access point and the utilization of WPS Drive as well. We've already mentioned the emergency access easement agreement that was recorded in 2021 as part of the One City Schools proposal and the sort of the site work that took place over there. Given the vacation of Engle Street, there is already discussion underway between the parties there to address that and to relocate that so that access is retained. As far as the minimum lot size, there are no minimum standards here within the city for the CDD zoning district. Of course, it must be able to accommodate future development, and with the smallest site, the smallest lot here being over 5 acres, that appears to be met. That's it from me. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And then opening up to the commission, we'll start with Brandon.
No comment. I think it seems like we've got our ducks in a row.
John?
Agree.
Rob? Susan?
Yeah, I agree, makes sense.
Chris?
I always have a comment. Staff alluded to it, the 2 conditions for the emergency access and the access agreements between the properties will be on the CSM2. And why you ask, is it redundant, but maybe Top Golf doesn't get built. Maybe they leave and they're not there anymore. When it's on the CSM, whoever the parties in the future are that own those properties understand that they have to play well together. So that's why it would be on the CSM also.
I mean, I was thinking it would be redundant, so I appreciate that, yeah. no,
Well,
that's-
ownership changes,
Yep.
uses
We
change.
prefer that.
Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense, yeah.
And
Yeah.
only thing that has that condition now is a zoning permit for Topgolf.
Right, got it,
So
yeah,
this covers the properties.
yeah, that's good.
Okay. All right.
So this is just pre-hearing,
Yeah,
so
just
you'll be
pre-hearing.
back.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, so
Okay.
to close the pre-hearing and move on to the public hearing on request by Top Golf, represented by SEMA, for approval of the comprehensive signage plan for the proposed golf entertainment venue at 5600 Shoal Drive. Case number S0202024. All right, signage.
Yeah, so this proposal is really seeking approval for the wall signage. And also, there are two proposed freestanding signs. One that would be more of a pylon sign type along Beltline. And then another that would be internal to the site would be a monument sign, kind of on the north end of the access drive. Kind of near the receiving area on the north, I guess, northwest corner. The pylon sign along Beltline certainly is for the purpose of capturing traffic visibility off that roadway, given the fact that our building will be set back a fair distance along with all the landscaping that will be provided there. And I know there's certainly building signage that's proposed that's more in the context of the size of the building, same scale of the building. There is a large shield logo. I don't know if we can, there we go, on the front of the building that really fits within that massing of the building. That's the only kind of real large sign that we have proposed. And the other signage is fairly typical, less than 4 or 5 feet tall, above the main entry to the building. That will be on the west side. And then we do have some signs along the southern T line that will be facing Beltline as well, the Top Golf with the logo. And we should have one on the north end of the building as well. There we go. That will be comparable. I don't know, could we go, Doug, could you go back to the rendering of the front elevation? Yeah, it seems like we have one extra sign here that we can remove. That is, yes, that's in the area of where the wood ethos is. It's just a Top Golf sign. We can remove that from the application. But having the north-south signs and also the signs on the front of the building are pretty standard for this size building. I do believe we have some graphics of the monument sign and also the pylon sign. There we go. Relatively minimally stated there. It's a 6-foot tall monument sign, again, tastefully done, and then similarly with the pylon sign, which is just a 30-foot tall pylon sign with the Top Golf tenant panel, and then there's a tenant panel for a potential future tenant on the out parcels.
All right. With that, we'll close the public hearing and move on to the consideration action on request by Top Golf, represented by SEMA, for approval of the comprehensive signage plan for the proposed golf entertainment venue at 5600 Gishult Drive. Doug.
Thank you. The comprehensive sign plan here proposed for 5600 Gishult. This is associated with the Topgolf proposal. The zoning for this site is Community Design District, CDD, and those standards will be referenced throughout. The few different elements to the signage package here, the first one being the wall signage. Typically, signs within the CDD are allowed one sign for each building face that abuts a public street frontage, and signs are limited to 1 square foot of area for each linear foot of building facade with a total of 150 square feet. The proposed building has a curved facade facing Gisholt Drive. That would be roughly 400 feet of linear frontage there. And then it's about 140 feet on both the north and south side of the buildings as well, that will face West Broadway as well as the Beltline Highway. So as far as the signage, the western building facade, there's approximately 132 square foot wall sign that is proposed above the main entrance, as well as the 398 square foot channel logo sign, both that were mentioned. I did include in the staff report that sort of final piece on the wood, on the ephes elements of the western facade, but it sounds like that would be removed. And again, the northern and southern facades, they have approximately 85.5 square foot signage on both the north and south. Total, including the other elements on the western side, is 750 square feet of wall signage proposed. Of course, that will be coming down a little bit. I believe it was about 80 square feet of the other element that's proposed. But certainly the commission should discuss, given the size and scale of the proposed building, the appropriateness of the signage. Similar size exceptions were granted just to the west of here at Southtown in June 2023 for the 3 tenant space at the former Hobby Lobby tenant space over there at Southtown Mall. A monument sign is also proposed. These are typically maximum area of 60 square feet, maximum height of 5 feet, to be located out of the vision triangle and at least 15 feet back from the curb. The proposal here is for the northwest corner of the site, north of the parking area, and nearly 16 feet from the curb. The proposal here is for an 8-foot tall monument sign with a total area just under 100 square feet, but the signage is just under 40 square feet. For reference, WPS was granted a size exception for an 8-foot tall sign with 75 square feet of signage back in 2015. And again, sort of given the size and scale of the campus there, and then also the proposed Topgolf here, that may be something the commission chooses to discuss. An exception would be needed from the sign code, given that both a monument sign and pylon sign are requested here. Typically, the code only allows for one of those, not for both. The applicant has requested a 30-foot pylon sign that does comply with the height standards, as well as the area standards of the city code. And it's also located within a eligible parcel for 4 pylon signs as well. As mentioned, it includes both the Topgolf panel, but also a future tenant panel. And this would be on the south side, facing the Beltline, facing both east and west. And the final element is the outfield freestanding sign. As mentioned, the screens have been removed from the proposal that were shown at the pre-hearing. And this is a freestanding sign that is 16.5 feet tall. The sign face is just under 10 feet tall, 50 feet wide for an area of 491.7 square feet. The proposed sign does face the interior of the building and only visible to the visitors on the site and not intended to be visible from outside. This may be something the commission chooses to discuss. Typically, interior signage does not count as part of signage plans and is excluded from the standards. Of course, this being an outdoor sign, but internal to the site, that may be something the commission chooses to discuss, with potential finding of fact included as they wish. With that, the staff recommendation is approval of the comprehensive sign plan with findings of fact and conditions of approval as listed in the staff report. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll open it up to the commission. Chris, you want to start?
Sure. I think overall it's well signed. That badge or whatever you call it, that's awful big. But thinking back, we did allow One City Schools to do the same type of thing on the corner of the parking ramp, which I'd say would be pretty similar size. Question for you, Doug. I'm not sure exactly what it says, but we have numerous cases where we have pylon signs and monument signs. I'm just, by memory, going up and down the Beltline. I think other than Southtown, almost everybody else does. Country Inns and Suites has it, Speedway has it. And when you go through it, they all have a pylon sign and a monument sign. Where we didn't do it was Southtown because they chose, at the time, that was the Beltline. And so they chose to put their pylon signs on what used to be the Beltline. And so at that point, they had their signage right there. There was no need for a second sign. So I believe other than that, we've treated most of these, because these are two different signs. I mean, the pylon sign obviously is for people going 60, 70 miles an hour down the highway to notice that, hey, this is what's here. What's that? Oh, that's what it is. Whereas that monument sign is, you've arrived, here's where you go and here's where you turn in. Am I getting that about right? And that's the way we've interpreted our code in the past.
Yes, I believe from memory, I don't have it in front of me, but I believe these are just both within that freestanding category, and it typically requires, or the new code, from 2019 does require one or the other. But certainly, I think, as you mentioned, Chris, there are other examples where this has been the case, appealing to sort of two different, audiences at that point as well.
I think that's how we've handled it. So I don't see any issue with that. The only sign I'm having a hard time with is an 8-foot tall monument sign. I don't see why you need an 8-foot tall monument sign on a road where people go 25 miles an hour. That one seems excessive.
I don't really disagree with you. I actually can walk that back. We don't, I think of all the quality of the signs that we're talking about, in my opinion, that's the least important. So we'll make a concession based on your comments there. The pylon sign is highly valuable, though. I think one can understand that.
Pylon sign is warranted in your district.
And the outfield sign is something that adds a nice touch and primarily is just visible from folks that are inside the building.
I kind of feel like Doug was alluding to, I mean, this is a whole big thing. It's not inside the building, but to me it's more like interior signage where you have something for the people that are there. And quite honestly, in that big open area probably helps break it up. I'm not opposed to that whatsoever. I think an 8-foot tall pylon or monument sign would seem massive right there. And I know you've gotten, Steve, some taller monument signs on Broadway where when the speed limit used to be 45 and you're trying to do it and integrate it with the landscaping. I don't see this as the same situation. I guess I'll be anxious to hear what you feel you do need and what other commissioners feel.
Yeah, I'm happy to remove that sign.
Oh, not remove it.
The monument sign?
No, not remove it. I'm just talking not 8
the height
foot tall.
Of it. Okay. Well, anything smaller than that really becomes very much understated, more difficult to see. We could look at something more understated, but I'm not, again, I'd be curious as to what others think tonight as well.
It's a good-looking sign. It just 8 foot is really big in that situation. And what it's there for, of course, is to say, hey, here's where you want to turn in. This is us. Yeah. So I'll leave it at that.
Susan?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the pylon sign. 8 feet's a little tall. I don't feel real strongly about it, though. I think it is a very attractive sign. And again, the building is so massive, I mean, which I guess could be an argument against why you need it. But I'm even reducing it to 6 feet. But I don't feel strongly enough about it if other people don't object. I mean, I'm okay with 8 feet. The one thing so you're talking about not putting the sign on the wood ephes, those two parts?
Yes, ma'am.
Because I was wondering about that. That seemed a little redundant to me especially when they're right next to each other on the south side.
I'm not sure which sign number that is, but yes, on the front elevation by the wood ephes,
right.
we
So
would
it'd be
remove that.
the front elevation, then also the south elevation. I think you had that.
Well, I think the south elevation is just kind of showing that. So the one on the darker color
That should
by
be
the
there.
stairs, we would keep
Yeah,
that. Yes,
yeah, that
yes,
should be
ma'am.
there. But I just didn't see why you needed the other one. I don't know. I mean, I don't feel real strongly about that either. It
Yeah.
just looks a little cluttered to me to have it right there. But
Yes, ma'am. We're happy to remove that.
yeah, otherwise they're nice looking signs. I like the logo as well. So.
Rob?
Just 3 comments. One's been addressed. The sign you were just talking about stood out as should be gone, but it sounds like that's gone. The outfield sign, I see that as internal to the site. I don't have any issues with that. And the monument sign, I think is, I don't think it's needed to be 8 feet, and I think 5 feet will do exactly what it's supposed to, especially considering it's kind of on a dead-end drive. Like, it's just there to tell you where to turn, and if you want examples, I think they do serve a purpose. You can drive down Monona Drive and see several of them that are very visible and readable. So, those are my comments.
John?
Yeah, I think for a entertainment, hospitality, sports kind of venue like this, I think the signage like this is expected and warranted. I think it's tasteful, I think it's proportional to the architecture and also to the investment being made. Won't the monument sign be visible from Broadway for a long time until future development gets done? No? Isn't that clear sight?
I'm sorry, it might, but that's not the
I don't know why I'm
purpose of the monument sign. The purpose of the monument sign is to identify the property when you get there.
Yeah, no, I get that. But for a while, it will from Broadway, people going 45 miles an hour or whatever, right?
I think they cut the speed limit down now.
30, or 35.
Only when we're not being chased. Okay, so, the pylon sign, two questions. The word tenant is kind of underneath Topgolf. Is that future tenant?
Yes, that would be a future tenant panel, again, to prevent, kind of just a single tenant sign, that potentially what Steve may do in the out parcel in the future, that could be a reserved panel for that.
For across the street, or not necessarily on this property?
For north of it, the future
Yeah.
development.
For our developable land.
Okay, got
Yes,
it.
his 4 or 5 acres to the north of Topgolf.
And then the next word down is development. I assume that's gonna be
Yeah,
your company name? Or?
No, sir, that would just be, we would, work with Steve on the appropriate name, like a shopping center name or something of that sort, a development name.
Like Southtown or something?
Something of that sort.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
got it. And then there's a silhouette of a guy swinging a golf course, or a golf. He's practicing, right?
That's just for frame of
Just
reference.
practice swing? Okay, all right. That's all I got, thanks.
Brandon?
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, one more
Go
thing.
ahead. It's all right, it's all right.
If we could correct the documents to state Monona again
Yes,
instead of
sir.
Madison, thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Okay, I'm going to start with this pylon monument thing. Actually, contrary to the rest of the folks who commented, I think long-term, I think the monument sign is a more attractive sign than the pylon sign. What I'm imagining might be able to happen here in the future with this district that's developing is that you could have a very attractive, kind of walkable shopping, entertainment district that's building up around it. And when I think of other highly developed spaces like that, whether it's in various places in California and Texas and Arizona, places like that, I usually think of very low-lying signage in those districts. I understand how at this stage a pylon sign makes a lot of practical sense and why it would be the highly valued sign, but I think in the long term, in terms of the strategic development of the area, I think that your monument sign could serve to be the more attractive sign long term. Just for frame of reference and consideration, I think it's an attractive sign. I think it's the better sign long term. The one sign, again, I'm very familiar with your signage in other locations across the country, and the one sign that I expect is going to be the most illuminated is the main logo on the front of the building. The blue light is very attractive on your buildings. The lettered signs tend not to be the visually dominant one, but that logo, are those able to be dimmed? If we were, for example, back to Chris's earlier comments of if there was ever an issue or a complaint from the community, the way that that's illuminated, is that controllable?
No, sir, I don't think that is, but that doesn't generate a lot of light. I mean, it's illuminated, it's internally illuminated,
Yeah.
but it's not something that is,
It's the one I always notice first.
yeah.
I would
Not
notice
a
it.
glare factor, not a lot of
Yeah.
light output, but.
Okay. The last comment is, appreciate what you did with the infield or the outfield sign. Just since this looks like it's going to end up being a custom sign, and since it's only going to be viewed by people who are already your customer, there are a number of other examples in the community where a brand has associated itself with the community, that for the square footage that you have on this sign, there might be an opportunity that beyond just simply the Topgolf logo, something that is like a co-branded thing of you're using the Topgolf logo, but you're also either, welcomes you to the community of Monona, or it's Topgolf Monona, just something where it seems like a great marketing opportunity for customers that you already have, continuing to stare at a message that, is this tone of welcome in the community. You just have a lot of area you could, that you could do with that. Just a thought. But I think the sign is great. I like your sign package. I think your buildings are very attractive.
Thank you.
So, Brandon, just to clarify, did you have a concern about the size of the monument sign, or?
No, I don't have a concern about the size of the monument sign.
Does anybody have anything else?
Yeah.
Chris?
I just want to ask, because Avid is what, 6 foot?
I was just thinking about that.
I think
Mr.
Abbott's 6
Bruce,
foot.
I believe they're both 6, yeah.
That's correct.
I think both those we did 6 foot, so would we agree that you could get a decent thing at a 6 foot high
Yeah,
monument
that's-
sign?
Yeah.
That's kind of what I was thinking, if some people weren't
We did
comfortable
allow
with
that
eight, so
on
it's a
larger
big-
properties.
Yeah, yeah.
Can I just ask what would your thoughts be on approving it tonight, subject to a cap of 6, and then Topgolf would have the decision to put it up at their kind of discretion?
Oh, it's, anytime you don't have to build Topgolf just because you have an
Right.
approval.
Yep.
So, I mean,
Yep.
if we prove a sign and you don't build it,
Sure. Yep.
yeah, so
Great.
that doesn't even have to be in the condition. Okay, I'll move approval.
Okay.
Finding of facts is written by staff. I'd like to make a note under the finding of fact, I think might be the best place for it, that the sign in our packet on the cedar ephes on the front elevation is not being approved. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay, and then the conditions approval is written by staff, and we'll add one that the monument sign shall be a maximum of 6 foot tall.
Great.
Second?
Yeah, second.
Did you have anything else to add, Chris?
No, I've got another, we have a second?
I have a second. I'll second it.
No, I am done, that was good, I just,
Yeah.
we can't discuss it till we have a second.
Your second.
No, I mean, there is a lot of conditions, you read through them all, you're aware of them.
Yes, sir.
The same condition we talked about, the sign gets too bright, well, we always had that condition, I'll tell you why. We've had monument signs up and down Monona Drive where they've had a white background, and it's glaring, it really distracts drivers. So we have been very cautious for glare ever since that happened years ago. And you won't see a sign approval in Monona without that condition about if glare becomes an issue, then we can come back and talk about it.
Yeah, we've really tried to combat that with the panel design.
Yeah, you can put opacity in that, you can add some so it's not so bright. We had
Well,
a
with just
few,
the black panel and the white letters, that cuts down on the glare and
that
the visual
works great.
impairment, so.
But just so you understand, this isn't just for you, this is
Understood.
everybody, they have
Yes, sir.
that condition in town.
Okay.
All right. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good luck.
We're gonna lose quorum. Oh, that's okay, because we're not doing any other action except for reports. Doug, did you have reports for us?
Have a good night.
Yes, I just have a couple things to share with the group. As far as economic development updates, the Joint Review Board and City Council did recently approve the creation of 7 new tax increment districts within the city. These are predominantly along both Monona Drive and the Broadway corridor. So certainly welcome to take a look at those on the city website under the CDA section of that. Feel free to take a look, reach out if you've got any questions, but they were recently approved. As far as upcoming Plan Commission items, we are expecting a meeting on September 9th. We do have some signage items as well as at least one zoning permit that I'm aware of. So please mark the September 9th date in your calendars. As far as DEI efforts updates, I have a meeting scheduled here for early September with Dane County staff. They had reached out specifically about racial covenants and that there are examples of those within the city of Monona. And so it's sort of more of an informational meeting that I'll be having with them. But I know that's come up in the past, I believe, in the Frostwoods neighborhood and sort of discussion of that. And what it means and what owners could do with those. So looking forward to that discussion and how I can sort of partner with the county on that. And then finally, Assistant Planner Jepson is working through right now under sustainability efforts, kind of a discussion with the City Council coming out of Sustainability Committee about a SolSmart designation. As part of that, as part of the city becoming that and sort of entering into that standard, there would be a potential ordinance review that would be conducted by SolSmart staff that would be looking at opportunities for the city to become more solar friendly, ordinance updates, changes that could be made. Of course, they would come through Plan Commission, but looking to leverage outside assistance for that and sort of best practices moving forward to assist with that as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Doug. And have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I have a comment first, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I just want to commend the city planner on getting through tonight. I know it's not easy when you're that sick. You did a great job of pretending you weren't sick.
True.
Yes.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Well, and the comprehensiveness of the review that we had for, for the business at hand tonight too was excellent.
It was well done.
Thank you very much, Doug.
Thanks very much, everybody. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I move to adjourn.
And there's a second.
Move to adjourn? Oh, sorry.
Did you?
I move to adjourn.
Oh, you did.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everyone.
Who seconded it?
I did.
Yeah,
Rob.
that's right.
Of course. You had to get it done before it was an hour and 40 minutes, right? It was an hour and 50.
Yeah, it's close.
That's right, I picked it up.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Good deal. Seems to be making the rounds again.
Chris, I thought your comments tonight were amazing, excellent, just excellent, about the zoning review. I was really impressed.
So, can somebody